on your world.
Good morning from welcome to another episode of Chizi Nyumbani. Wake up is another day to rise and shine. Get control of your day. Yes, this is the place to get control of your day. Yeah? Okay, wake up. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Remember, we need these 2 chairs as usual, and we need our 2 water bottles. Today we are going to train chest, yes, and tricep. Right. I know. Ladies are all the time thinking that they don't need to train chest. Yes, you do. I am here to tell you, yes, you need to train your chest just to form up things. You know what I mean, ladies? Yes, but the men really need it. So get up, get those water bottles, get the chairs. Today we're going to do chest and bicep, chest and tricep. So I'm going to put a timer, right? I'm going to put a timer to help us get things together and bring them here or in our space ready for the workout. Here we go. Your time starts now. So that is 40 seconds of your time. 40 seconds of your time to be able to get something here before we start our warm-up. If you're already there, just slow as wait for the other people to join us, right? If you're at home and you're still in your blanket, I see you. Let's do this together. You need to get control of your day, and there's nothing better than staying active, especially in this weather. I don't know where you are, but in Nairobi it's a bit chilly. So this is the best way just to increase your lung capacity, right? And also just to get active. So I want to believe you have gotten the water bottle, the chair or some support or a stool in that case, and then you have your space. So we're going to start with a warm-up. We're going to do 15 jumping jacks and then 10 jump squats. Remember, when we tap here and tap here, that's 1, right? And then remember this, that's 1, 2, and if you have an injury, that's how we go about it. Are we together? We're going to do 3 sets. Are you ready? I know you are. We start with the jumping jacks, and then we go to the jump squats. If you have an injury for the jump squats, you tap there and tap there. 1, tap there and tap there. 2. All right. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done. Let's go to the jump squat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and of course 10. If you did that first set with me, well done, well done. So just jog on the spot as we rest. So we are having an active rest. That's 40 seconds. Just jog on the spot. Breathe in and out on the spot. Yeah, just slowly, active rest. Let's stretch this muscle. Let's stretch everything. We have 20 more seconds to go. Just let the arms feel it, nice and slow. Control. So we're just trying to stay active. We have 10 more seconds. Trying to stay active and also resting with our heart rate going a little low. All right, our time's up. Let's go for the jumping jacks again. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and of course 15. Well done. Let's go for the jump squat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, we're going to 10. And you went straight ahead with me. Actually, 13, I caught you on that, right? I was trying to see who was alive. All right, just on the spot again. Nice and slow. If you have space to walk, just walk. Move those arms, move them around, you know, because we want to do a lot of tricep and some chest. So just some movement, comfortable movement, just so that you're not stuck in one space, right? Keep moving. All right. We have 2 more seconds to go. And yes, our time's up. Let's start. 1, 2, 3. Let's go for the last set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Your rest time starts now. Now the next thing we're going to do a combination of chair dip and a push-up. Chair dip and push-ups. So let's move the water to the side and bring one chair right there. So first of all, what I mean is we're going to do here a chair dip. Remember, you lift yourself using your arms, and then a push-up. This is what I mean. Holding the chair, chest to the chair, and up. Chest to the chair, and up. Are we together? I know you are. Our time's up. Our time's up. We're going to do 3 sets of 12, 12. So we start with the chair dips. And our rest time is 40 seconds. Today I'm nice. I increased by 10 seconds. You gotta give me that. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3. Use your arms. 4, 5, 6. Use your arms. 7, 8, 9, 10. Keep going. 11. You're doing well. 12. All right. Okay. Let me give you like 10 seconds rest. I saw your face. All right. Let's go for the next one. We're doing a push-up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and of course 12. Now, if you've never done a push-up before, here is an alternative. Let me move this seat to the side for a second. Hold the wall, right? And then just go to the wall and back. Go to the wall and back. All right. So if putting your weight this low is not sustainable for you for the 12 repetitions, you could as well find a wall and use a wall. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. So we have 40 seconds. So remember, you can use a wall, and when you're doing the chair dips, I don't recommend this for everyone, but if you're a beginner, you can use your legs just a little bit for liberate. However, the weight needs to lie on your arm so that you're able to activate this muscle here, right behind there. All right, good. Make sure you hydrate, as usual, hydrate. We have 10 more seconds, 10 more seconds. We are going back to the chair dips. All right, time's up. Time's up. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1. Use your arms. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Use your arms. 11, 12. Perfect. So I'll just give you 10 seconds there. Massage these babies here. Massage them a little bit and get ready for the push-up. Remember, I said if you're doing these push-ups for the first time, and well, it's not the first time we're demonstrating a beginner's push-up, but you can use the wall. You can put your chest against the wall, moving back and forth, but pushing using your arm. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, core tight. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Perfect. Perfect. You did an amazing job. So we have one more set of that. One more set. Starting our rest time starts now. So walk around, massage them. You're doing amazing. You should be feeling here by now. You should be feeling a lot of this, and also just a bit of the chest, but mostly right here, right? Mostly right here. So we are working on the tricep. We're working on the tricep. We're working on the tricep. All right. We have 6 more seconds to go. 6 more seconds to go. We are going for our last set. 6 more seconds to go for the last set. Time's up. So we're going to go for the last set. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and of course 12. Well done. I'll give you 10 seconds. Massage them in readiness for the push-up. Massage them in readiness for the push-up. I'll give you 10 seconds. Let's go. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, use your arms, 10, 11, and of course 12. Well done, well done, well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Walk around, walk around, walk around, walk around before we go to our next workout. Our next workout is going to be inchworm. With inchworm, you pedal, tap shoulder, and then come back up. So what you're going to do, I'll demonstrate. You do that here, tap shoulder, and then pedal back to standing position. We're going to do 12 times 3. 12 times 3. So our time's up. We'll do that starting now. We're going to do 12 times 3. 1, 2, 3, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 more. 11, 1 more. 12, well done. Take some water, Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Set number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and of course the last one, 12. Well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Walk around 40 seconds, take some water. Walk around, take some water. You're doing well so far. You're doing well. We have 15 more seconds. Breathe in and out. In and out. Walk around. All right, time's up. Our time's up. Let's go. Last set. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 more, 11, 1 more, well done, you did amazing. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Walk around. So the next thing we're going to do is a press. We're going to do a chest press. We're going to use our water bottle. Remember, if you're able to do heavier weight or more repetitions, do not feel limited by myself, all right? Because this is what I can easily access, and also the number of repetitions is guided mostly by the time we have. So if you want to do 15 repetitions, 20 repetitions, it's perfectly okay. Our time's up. We'll start chest press. You lie on your back and then we'll just gently push the weight up. Make sure you contract your chest. Very deliberate movement. All right. So as you're down here, how do you load the weight onto you? Put it on your lap, right? And come down like that with the weight. Take it up, contract your chest, and down. Up and down. 2. We're doing 15 times 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, contract, 13, 14, and of course 15. Bring it down to your chest, slide it down and bring it to your side. So make sure you secure the weight. All right, my water bottle is leaking a little bit. I'll try with the other one, making sure it's not leaking. All right, I think this is better. I think that is better. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Walk around. Walk around. Oh yeah. Walk around, walk around. So we're going to do 2 more sets of that. If you have been working out with me throughout, you can see my sweat. Yes, we are here trying to kill it and begin on a new normal. We have 15 more seconds to go. 15 more seconds to go. All right, 10 more seconds. Just walk around, have an active rest. And then we have 5 more seconds. All right, let's go down. Let's go down. You could as well do this on a workout bench if you have a bench. But since some of us, most of us, if you're like myself, only have our mats. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, contract. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, contract, 13, 14, contract, and of course 15. Bring the weight down, slide it down, and there we go. Perfect. All right. So our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Walk around. Walk around. All right. Walk around. Walk around. Walk around. Walk around. All right. So we have a few minutes there. I don't know if you're feeling your chest and tricep, but of course, I'm feeling the chest and tricep. If you haven't followed us, go to Eval, E-V-E-A-L on Instagram or Facebook to find more tips and workouts and just how to live and be positive and have positive energy during this COVID season. All right. Okay, there we go. We have 1 more seconds to go. Let's go. Down. Bring the weight here. And there we go. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and of course, 15. Well done, well done. You did amazing. You did amazing. That's it from here at Tizi Nyumbani until our next episode. Have a lovely, lovely day, and you have gained control of your day just because you put in this workout. Never miss a workout. A bad workout is better than no workout at all. Have a lovely day. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Pata smartphone mpya kuanzia 20 bob daily pekee ukilipa mdogo mdogo. Weka down payment ya 1000. Lipa kuanzia 20 bob daily kwa miezi 9. Piga star 544 hash kuona kama unafaulu kupata 4G Neon Ray Pro. Si hapo Safaricom ni yako kabisa.
From far with you.
Kabisa.
I even gifted you a magnificent house. Rosa, it's the thought that counts. Please help me.
When it comes to fever, you need to be both. Panadol Baby and Infant starts to work on fever in 15 minutes and is gentle on the tummy. Panadol Baby and Infant, tough on fever, gentle on your child.
Credit to you if you stay at home. If you must shop online, use your NCBA credit card. Stay home. Stay safe.
Kenya's banking sector holds 3.26 trillion shillings worth of deposits. Periodically, the safety of depositors' funds has come under the spotlight. What does the upward revision of the deposit insurance coverage mean for depositors? What does adoption of a risk-based premium mean for the banking sector? This week, Business Redefined hosts the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Deposit and Insurance Corporation, Mohamud Ahmed Mohamud, for a discussion on this.
Pompous processions, fanfare, grandeur, and feasting are some of the scenes witnessed during funeral ceremonies in Western Kenya.
Mtu amekufa, umzike na sanduku ya shilingi 10, sanduku ya shilingi milioni 1, hiyo ni expense ya bure.
All this splendor come at a price.
Wakijua umekufa, wana make sure wamewacha hiyo boma ikiwa nothing.
Join me Okusa as I take an in-depth look at how COVID-19 has killed what was a thriving sector, but which on the flip side has impoverished thousands of families in the region.
I have a well-paying job, my friend. I have a job.
Hii hapa ni Mercury na inauzwa 50,000.
My son is going to Harvard. I need him to take his SATs.
We can use this to get him ready as we reschedule for him.
Look here, madam. My son was born ready.
This is yours. Let's just try. Let's write your name. Good. Hii ni Mercury. Inatumia kutengeneza mpaka nini? Rocket.
What you have there is glycerin. Plus mercury is not used for that purpose, my friend. The internet helps you keep tabs with events from all across the world.
Mr. Camo, not connected.
People are gradually warming up to accept our business model because rather than go to a barbering shop where you can't be assured of your safety, they will rather want us to come.
We are able and capable of producing about 50 ventilators per week.
It has also made us realize that as a country we are capable to manufacture actually most of the things we think we should import.
Did you know there's a laundry bar soap that can help save you time, water, and money? You save by not having to use multiple products. And you only rinse once. For a laundry soap that can help save you time, water, and money, try Whitewash Extra. Brand power, helping you buy better.
Mwenyezi Mungu atakufungulia hazina zake nzuri kutoka mbinguni na kubariki kazi za mikono yako. Utayakopesha mataifa mengi lakini wewe hautakopa. Mungu atakufanya kuwa wa kwanza na sio wa mwisho. Hakika utaendelea mbele na sio kurudi nyuma.
To get blessings za maisha, SEO Skiza Tune. Dial *811 *928#.
This is NTV.
East Africa. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this is your world where we try to make sense of the new normal every single day. And speaking of which, it has been said those with underlying conditions are more susceptible to contracting COVID-19 and also developing severe disease. So today we try to understand these conditions from the eyes of those that live with them, and of course also a caregiver and specialists on the same. But before we get to it, we have a lot lined up for you. Let's start off with those numbers in as far as the effects of COVID-19 around the world. And so far, we are at 20,023,502 people globally with COVID-19. 12,897,985 people have recovered from the same, and unfortunately 733,995 people have succumbed to COVID-19. Now, I look at some of the numbers making headlines, especially in our country, Kenya, if I can't get to those numbers. But remember, these are numbers that are always updated every single day and every single hour as the WHO gets the same. In Kenya, Those numbers stand at 26,436,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 12,961 people have recovered from the same, and unfortunately 420 people have succumbed to COVID-19. We keep you updated as and when we get those numbers. And for now, let's go to Rwanda, where the government has made it mandatory if you are found going against any of the parameters set in place to actually alleviate the numbers of COVID-19 in that country, you are taken to a stadium and given lectures on why these measures are important. As you can see, those are people in a stadium taking in lectures, those who have not been wearing masks properly, those who have not been wearing them at all, and those who don't seem to think it is important to social distance or even wash their hands. As I mentioned, those with underlying conditions are most susceptible to contracting COVID-19, and it looks like every single day when we get those briefings from the Ministry of Health, there has been mentioned that diabetes and hypertension seem to continue making to the top of that list. So let's take a look at the effects of diabetes.
It is not that people with diabetes are more likely to get COVID-19 than the general population. There isn't evidence to indicate that if you have diabetes, you are likely to get COVID-19. That's not what we're saying or what the information that has been gathered so far says. What it says is that when people with diabetes become infected with COVID-19, then they have a higher chance of experiencing serious complications from COVID-19, and the outcomes are usually not good. And this is even worse for those diabetics who do not manage their diabetes well and experience fluctuating blood sugars. Let us also emphasize that obesity also predisposes people to many ailments, diabetes included. Many patients with type 2 diabetes are obese, and obesity is a risk factor for severe infection. People with severe abdominal obesity also have mechanical respiratory problems, resulting in poor ventilation of the lungs, thus increasing the risk of pneumonia, as well as reduced oxygen saturation of blood. With COVID-19, this combination of conditions can be deadly.
So as I mentioned, that's what we are focusing on this morning, underlying conditions and the effects of the same when it comes to COVID-19. But of course, remember the burden of non-communicable diseases was also there way before COVID-19. So let's get to understand more about the same. And to help us do so, we've got Dr. Eva Jenga, who is in studio with us. She is the chair of the Non-Communicable Diseases Alliance, NCD. She also is the chairperson of the Kenya Practitioners and Dentists Board. She is also the founder and director of the Diabetes Management and Information Center. And of course, she is a physician and endocrinologist. Thank you for your time. We're also joined by Dr. Charles Kamotho, who is a cardiologist. Thank you for your time. We are also joined by Anne Owiso, who is hypertensive. She lives in Nairobi's Kibera area. We also have virtually Angela Wakonyo, who is a caregiver to a daughter with type 1 diabetes. And also George Odhiambo joins us as he has type 1 diabetes, and he's in our other studio. Thank you to all for making time for this crucial conversation. And Dr. Jenga, I'll start off with you. Maybe a simple definition of what diabetes is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important subject to be discussing amidst the COVID issues. Diabetes is a chronic disease. It's one of the chronic non-communicable diseases we're talking about. It comes about when your pancreas doesn't function properly or it doesn't function at all. The pancreas is that endocrine gland in our body that produces insulin. Insulin is a hormone that is important in the way we metabolize our foods, especially carbohydrates. It's also involved in the metabolism of fat and protein. So when you have a deficient of insulin production, then you are not able to handle all this metabolism, and especially carbohydrates, which are converted into sugar. So when you are not able to utilize your sugar, it becomes very high in the blood. So when you hear people saying, I have sugar, or I have the disease of sugar, because the sugar is very high, and that's eventually what now people refer to as diabetes.
Okay, and what are the causes?
Now, there are mainly 3 types of diabetes, and we have type 1, which is, you've said that 2 people in the studio with type 1 diabetes. That is absolute deficiency of the pancreatic beta cell function. So that when your cells don't function at all, and this could be because of a genetic predisposition, it comes through the family. And it can also happen when, if you destroy your pancreas because of the cancer, or the pancreas is destroyed because of chronic alcohol use, or even injury, so that then the pancreas doesn't function. So that can cause type 1 diabetes, and you will be requiring the use of insulin for life. Then we have the commonest, which is 80%, actually up to 85% of our people who have diabetes in Kenya, they suffer from type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is when your pancreas is functioning, but suboptimally. So the insulin you're producing is not working well enough for you, or it's not adequate. It can be not adequate because you are overly obese, so your body requires more. It can also not be adequate because you have other causes in the body or other conditions that negate the use of the insulin that you are making. So eventually you end up with diabetes as well. Then we have type 3. Type 3 is gestational diabetes, the diabetes that occurs when I'm already is going through the pregnancy period. And this is, again, most of the people who have gestational diabetes will eventually, even after birth, the diabetes disappeared, but those are candidates of future type 2 diabetes. Yeah, and that happens because the baby becomes also a stressor, even when you're pregnant, and your pancreas can cope. And that's when you have that gestational diabetes.
Okay, now before I get to George, so you're saying you can be born with it, so there is a genetic factor?
Yes.
And also an environmental factor because of a type 2?
Yes.
Okay, now George, thank you for joining us. And you have type 1 diabetes. Do you have diabetes in your family?
No, I'm the first one to get diabetes.
Okay, and when you found out, what symptoms were you showing?
It was frequent urination, thirsty, and then I was feeling tiredness, and then I was weak. Those are some of the symptoms that I showed up.
Okay, and when you went to hospital, what did they ask, which tests did they conduct on you?
So, the first day that I was diagnosed with diabetes, I didn't know much that I've been diabetic since it was 12 years back.
Yes.
So I was young. Back then I was 8 years. So I didn't know much about diabetes. So there was a doctor at Kenyatta National Hospital who told me later that I'm diabetic, and in short that uko na ugonjwa wa kisukari. So from there she gave me some guidelines that what I should do and what I should not do. So from there it's when that I learned that being diabetic, I'm not supposed to take sugary things. Hello. I'm not supposed to take sugary things. Yes.
Okay, now let me cross over to Angela, who is a caregiver to a daughter with type 1 diabetes. Angela, is your child the first in your family to have diabetes?
Yes, she is the first to have type 1 diabetes. Yeah, my grandmother, I think, had type 2, but which was long time ago. So for me, her being a child, it was the first one that I had, encountered, and it was pretty shocking for us.
Okay, and
but
how
she was diagnosed.
How did you
Sorry?
find out?
She had just turned 2 years old, and she was a pretty healthy girl, and all of a sudden her weight just dropped. She lost a lot of weight, and she wasn't eating well. She was just thirsty all the time. And then we happened to watch a documentary by Dr. Eva Jenga on television, and it was about diabetes. And so we could see all the signs and symptoms that were in Abby. And we decided to take her to hospital to have her checked. So when she was checked, her blood sugar was checked, and we were told that she's diabetic. Yeah, it was just, whoa, devastating.
Wow, I can imagine. And interesting experiences from both. George says no one else in his family, at least for Angela, the fact that there was a type 2 family member, somebody with type 2 in their family, there is a predisposition there, right?
You know, what really happens is that just because you have type 1 and you can't tell that immediately you don't know whether there's anybody in the family, doesn't mean that there's no genetic predisposition. Because there'll be people who have gone, maybe great-grandparents, because it can also skip generations when it comes to the inheritance, of it being passed on. And the fact that it's not 100% passing on in a family. So there will be other things that are predisposing, as you said very clearly, environmental. But for type 1, when you have that genetic predisposition, it's not direct. You find that type 1 diabetics, usually it will be the grandparents, not the parents who have. It is usually the grandparents that will have had, and most likely even type 2. So it is not because somebody has type 1 in the family that you also get type 1. That's not the way these genes work. No.
Okay. And in terms of symptoms, are they exactly similar in adults and in children?
Not necessarily. And there are many. There is an array of symptoms. There are people who will actually start with, you have heard Angela saying her child was not eating well. There are some that have polyphagia, where they will just want to eat. They are getting hungry all the time. Because even the sugar that they have, even if it's high, the body is not able to utilize. So the body feels like it's in a state of starvation, and they just want to eat, but they are losing weight. So that it can be totally different. But the passing of a lot of urine, getting thirsty, that's usually standard, because the high sugar makes you thirsty, increases your osmolality, the osmolality in the blood. So that mechanism makes you get thirsty. Then, of course, since you are drinking too much water, then the kidney has to flush that out. And that sugar, since you are not absorbing it in your cells, comes out through the kidney, and with it pulls a lot of water. So that's why that mechanism, you're drinking, you're passing, you're drinking, you're passing. So those two are very common in both type 1 and type 2. The type 2s, most of them will actually gain weight. You will gain weight up to a point until they get such a point when the sugar is so high and they're not able to, their appetite starts going down, that they start losing weight.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're a bit different. And then, of course, there are so many other symptoms because of the high sugar, the lack of energy, the reduced immunity. When you have very bad sugar control, you have very high sugar, your body immunity drops. So a good number of the people with diabetes will present with some recurring infections. Maybe they be skin, maybe respiratory, urinary tract infection. So those are the ones that sometimes actually trigger the parents to say, my child keeps on getting these infections. You get it? So there's so many different types of presentation.
Okay. Now let's bring in Dr. Charles Kamotho into this conversation. Hypertension is also one of the underlying conditions that has been said to make the patients more susceptible to contracting COVID-19 and also to develop severe disease. What is hypertension?
Thank you so much, Gladys, for having me on the show, and good morning, everyone. Pleasure to listen to Dr. Jenga, one of my teachers, and so yes, hypertension is a very common condition right now. Just to be a bit more accurate, hypertension does not make you more susceptible to contracting.
Okay, Dr. Charles, I think we'll come back to you in a moment. We are having a struggle with your sound, but we'll sort it out in a moment. Let me cross over to Anne Owiso, who is hypertensive. Anne, uligundua ukiwa umri upi, like ulikuwa na hypertension?
Nilikundua nikiwa na umri wa miaka 40.
40?
Ndio nilijua niko na yes.
Na wakati huu uko na miaka ngapi?
Niko na 47.
Sasa ni nini ambayo ulikuwa unapitia ndio ujue kuna shida pale?
Okay. Mwanzoni nilikuwa nasikia maumivu kupanda kitu kama mlima, nilikuwa nasikia joints zinauma, kichwa kinauma. Sasa tulikuwa siku moja nilikuwa natembea na wa health workers walikuwa natembea wakipima watu. Nikasema wacha nipitie hapa nipimwe. Sasa kupimwa mara ya kwanza nikaambiwa pressure yangu iko juu. Kuambiwa pressure yangu iko juu, nikakuja nikakataa, nikasema ni mchezo. Aya, nikamaliza kitu kama 2 weeks. Tena nilikuwa natembea tu, wakanikujia kwa nyumba. Kunikujia kwa nyumba, kunipima, wakaniambia we mama, usicheze na maisha yako. Uende kliniki ya Amref uanze dawa kwa sababu pressure yako iko juu. Na hapo ndio nilianza kwenda Amref.
Okay. Na wakati huo, wakati uliambiwa uko na hypertension, familia kuna mtu yeyote mwingine ako naye?
Kuna mtu ako nayo kwa sababu kupitia kwa support group ilikuwa kule Amref. Kulikuwa na wenzangu ambao walikuwa na shida hii. Tukawekwa pamoja, ikawa tutakuwa tunaenda kujifundisha na tulikuwa tunaenda kwa mwezi mara 2. Nashukuru Dr. Jaram alitafutia daktari ambaye alianza kutufundisha na tukajua ya kwamba hii ugonjwa inashika kwa familia yako, ukiwa nayo hata pia wewe unaweza pata.
Aya, Anu, umeniambia kweli kama kuna mtu yeyote mwingine kwenye familia yenu wako naye?
Mamangu alikuwa nayo na kaaka.
Okay. Na wakati ule mlikuwa mnajua ni hiyo, ama sasa wakati ulipata ndio sasa ulianza kuona symptoms zilifanana?
Wakati huo si kujua ni hiyo, lakini wakati nilipimwa nikaanza kufikiria labda ni hiyo, lakini kupitia kwa mafundisho yale tulikuwa tunafundishwa, tuliambiwa ya kwamba pressure haina, uwezi jua kama uko na pressure, haina dalili unless upitie kwa kipimo.
Okay, asante Anne. And it is interesting because over and over again we have been told by the Ministry of Health that diabetes and hypertension seem to be sisters or brothers or cousins. They walk hand in hand. Explain that.
Let me say that you find that most of our diabetic patients actually will have hypertension, but not the other way around. Most of the hypertensives may not have diabetes, but there's no, it's not a must, but it's not because of the genetics per se, but I think also you've just said something very, very important, the environment, the lifestyle. The causative or the risk factors of diabetes are very, very similar to the risk factors of getting hypertension when you think about other things other than genetics. And since genetics is not the only key thing to get these non-communicable diseases, then you are likely to be predisposed to both. If you're predisposed to diabetes, you are likely to be predisposed to hypertension. And that's why you'll most likely find them together in one population or in one community or in one patient. Yeah.
Okay, and George, wakati ulienda hospitali, did the healthcare workers for sure know from the get-go that you had diabetes, ama?
After I was diagnosed with diabetes, that was in Kenyatta, then I was taken back home, that is Babadogo. There at Babadogo, it was very difficult for me to get the health workers who really know about diabetes. So it was difficult for me, for me to take my medication and everything, since in the chemist and the pharmacist there, they didn't have the insulin there.
Okay. When you say it was difficult because they did not know about diabetes, is it because they couldn't recognize the symptoms?
By then, I believe, or whatever I came up with, is that most of the health workers there, they didn't know what is diabetes by then.
Okay. And how long ago is this?
It was like a period of 2 years.
2 years ago?
No. After being diagnosed with diabetes, that is 2010. Since from 2008 to 2010, then there was this a health workshop that was done in Korogosho. There, it's when I found someone who showed me there, and then from there was a diabetes workshop that was done there, and then from there that's when I was helped, because in that area there are some people who are also affected with diabetes, but mostly type 2 diabetes. So I was among them, and then I was shown to go to DMI.
Okay, all right. So let me clarify. You have type 1 or type 2?
I'm type 1.
You're type 1, eh?
Yes, I'm type 1.
Okay, Angela, with your daughter, as much as you were seeing something was off, when you went to a hospital, was it obvious from the get-go to the healthcare workers that your daughter was diabetic?
When we went to hospital, we took her to a nearby clinic. She was 2 years old, so we were still taking her for clinics regularly. And when we took her to the clinic, my husband decided to just tell the doctor straight to check her blood sugar, because he had just watched a documentary on TV about diabetes and the symptoms, and that is what was showing. So he told the doctors to just check, if her sugars are okay before anything else. So when they checked, the sugars were pretty high, and I think they didn't have any way of dealing with diabetes there. So we were told we need to look for a diabetes specialist, immediately, because her sugars were pretty high. And that's how we ended up going to see Dr. Eva Jenga. And then she told us we need to be admitted. She needs to be admitted immediately. So she got admitted. Yeah.
All right, Angela, when you asked for the sugar test, was there any hesitation considering how old she was from the healthcare workers?
I was seated outside with her, so I don't know how my husband dealt with them. He just went straight to the lab and told them, please do a test.
Okay, and the reason, Dr. I'm asking this is because most healthcare workers have been said not to recognize or to confuse the symptoms of diabetes for something else, and especially for children, because they're still growing and they show different growth spots rather, you also think it's something else, but it cannot be diabetes. Is that the case?
That's the case. That's the case. And it's, I think you are not wrong that most parents also will actually not want it to be diabetes. The ones that, it's when you have information, it changes everything. You can see those who are informed parents, they already had heard about this, so they really wanted to confirm. But most of the parents, sometimes when they come and you find the sugar, they will want it to be something else. And sometimes actually some will go to different centers to seek second opinion. Because again, a child of 2 years, we've seen some even for 4 months, it's very, very difficult to tell a mom, your child has type 1 diabetes and they'll be on insulin for the rest of their life. So it's normal. It's a normal reaction not to believe first. And because this is a little, where do they get it and why? There are so many questions that go through one's mind. So that is not an unusual reaction for somebody to think that they're not diabetic. But also in the country, until very recently, we didn't have wide comprehensive training of our health professionals in diabetes management, in diabetes diagnosis. But now the Minister of Health, with a number of stakeholders, including the Diabetes Management and Information Center, like Ajiras have said, we started going out there and informing and training our health professionals. We are even having now community health workers who go around homes with a blood pressure machine, and with a glucometer. So that in the case they take the history, they talk to the families, and they find somebody may have diabetes, they actually check on the spot. So this is improving. This is what we hope to achieve by creating awareness and campaigning to get people right at the primary health facilities tested for diabetes. And the reason being, you've been talking about people with diabetes, when they get COVID, they have problems. That's why we need to get to know them early so that they can control it. And if they get the COVID or any other infection, they'll be just like anybody else, and they'll be able to manage.
Okay, and we'll talk more about the risks of misdiagnosis later on. Let me bring in Dr. Kamotho. You are defining to us what hypertension is.
Yes, thank you very much. And so hypertension is a condition in which the pressure inside the blood vessels is higher than it should be, is higher than a figure that has been noted to have the best outcome in patients. And that figure is 140/90. So any blood pressure that is consistently equal to above 140/90 millimeters of mercury is defined as high blood pressure or hypertension. So it's important to understand that, because there are some who think that hypertension or elevated blood pressure, for that matter, elevated above 140/90, is normal in elderly people. And that is actually not the case. It may be common in elderly people, but it is not the normal thing. And therefore, one should be very clear that any blood pressure equal to or above 140/90, when it is taken correctly, and that is an office and a clinic blood pressure reading, then that is defined as high blood pressure or hypertension.
And what are the causes of the same?
So hypertension has a myriad of causes. The truth of the matter is that many of the times the causes are not very clear. Actually, in 95% of the cases of hypertension, one cannot really pinpoint what the actual cause is. And that is what we call primary hypertension. Primary meaning that there's nothing that we recognize to have been there before it as a cause of the high blood pressure. And so 95% of such people are found to have high blood pressure, sometimes just on a sporadic take, but very commonly they are found to be hypertensive as a consequence of some of the complications. Just to complete the etiology, the 5%, we've talked of 95% being primary, so 5% are what we call secondary hypertension. So secondary hypertension is the high blood pressure that occurs as a consequence of some other problem. It may be a kidney problem. It may be a problem with one of the hormones, such as the thyroid hormone or the adrenal glands, which also produce hormones. So when you have an excess of some of these hormones in the body, or other conditions, as I have alluded to, then that can also lead to high blood pressure. And in such a case, if one were to manage the high blood pressure, one would need to identify those causes and first deal with those, or let's say deal with those at the same time as you're dealing with the actual high blood pressure. So I have alluded that most of the cases do not have an obvious cause, but just as Dr. Janga has mentioned in the case of diabetes, for hypertension, we also recognize that there is a huge genetic predisposition as well as the role of the environment. So lifestyle has a very, very major role to play. We know very well that in the early 1900s, there was hardly any, and before that, there was no evidence of high blood pressure in Kenya, right? There's a famous Kavirondo study that we can get into maybe another day that actually showed that there was no evidence of high blood pressure in Kenya at that time. But we know now that the prevalence of high blood pressure has really gone high. In other words, the number of people who have it. So 1 out of every 5 people, 1 out of every 5 Kenyan adults have high blood pressure. The prevalence of high blood pressure right now in Kenya is 21%. And that is data from a very large study that was carried out by one of the pharmaceutical companies that went around actually screening people. The data from the Ministry of Health just before that was 24%. Those were estimates, obtained from the data that they had at that time in 2015. But the latest data shows that 1 out of every 5 people. So right now on this meeting, we're 5, 6 of us. So, probably 1, 2 of us are hypertensive. So that is the stark reality, which brings to the fact, Gladys, that it's very important to screen. I really like what Dr. Jenga mentioned just before this, of how her team is going out to look for diabetics, because very often they don't have very obvious symptoms.
Yeah.
So something similar has to happen also for high blood pressure. People need to go out and check for themselves, because sometimes the symptoms can be very subdued.
Okay, and let me go back to Anna Wiso, who is hypertensive. Anne, wakati uligundua na umekuwa ukienda mafunzo, ukipata mafunzo ya vile kuishi na hypertension, unaangaliwa uko hali gani, mara ngapi kwa wiki ama kwa mwezi?
Kwa mwezi naangaliwa mara moja. Lakini wakati tulikuwa tumeanza support group before corona, tulikuwa tunaenda mara 2 kwa mwezi. Jumamosi ya kwanza na ya mwisho.
Na mlikuwa mnaenda wapi?
Tulikuwa tunaenda hapa Amref.
Na wale ambao hawawezi fika pahali kama hapo, huenda kuangaliwa wapi?
Kuna mahospitali karibu, mtu huwa anaenda mahali hospitali iko.
Okay, na wakati walikuambia sasa ni lazima uangalie maisha yako vile unaishi ndio uwe control ama umanage hypertension, uliambiwa uangalie nini haswa?
Okay, kitu ya kwanza niliambiwa ya kwanza niangalie chakula ambacho nakula. Na nikaambiwa chakula ambacho nakula inastahili iwe healthy. Nikisema healthy namaanisha chakula ambacho kiko na chumvi kidogo, sukari kidogo na mafuta kidogo. Okay. Jambo la pili nikaambiwa ya kwamba ni jaribu kumanage stress. Kumanage stress ikawa tulifundishwa ya kwamba ukisikia mahali ajali iko, usikimbilie kwenda kuona, utastuka na pressure ipande. Ukipata mahali watu wanakombana, usiende hapo, unaweza stuka tena ufanye nini? Pressure ipande. Okay. Jambo lingine lilikuwa ni kufanya mazoezi. Tulifundishwa unastahili ufanye mazoezi kwa wiki mara 3. Na uhakikisha kwamba ile mazoezi wakati unapofanya unamaliza dakika 30. Unajua kuna wengi wetu wanasema sasa kama mimi naishi Mashimoni hapa Kibera na nafasi ni kidogo. Mtu anashindwa nafasi nini, mazoezi nitakuwa nafanya aje? Si eti lazima uwe na zile sarakazi mingi ya kufanya mazoezi. Unaweza hata kama mimi huwa nafungua redio, naweka ile wimbo yenye napenda. Nafanya nayo zoezi. Haya, nikienda mahali kama soko ama mahali ambapo naweza tembea, ninatembea na nihakikishe nimetembea kwa dakika 30. Jambo lingine, hata kama ni chakula ambacho tunakula, inastahili ujue unakula chakula na kwa nini unakula hiyo chakula. Tukafundishwa jinsi sahani yetu ya chakula inastahili kuwa. Hii sahani yetu ya chakula inastahili nusu ya sahani iwe na mboga mingi, na a quarter iwe na protein kidogo, na ingine iwe na carbohydrate kidogo. Kwa nini? Wakati unapotumia mboga kwa wingi, iko na fiber, na ile fibers itasaidia kujaza tumbo, alafu hii chakula ingine utakula kidogo. Alafu jambo la mwisho, kuzingatia maamuzi ya daktari. Vile daktari anakuambia inastahili ufuate vile anakuambia. Kama ni kwenda kuangaliwa, wewe enda uangaliwe. Kumeza dawa inastahili usingatie masaa ile unameza dawa zako.
Okay, Anne Owiso, yani wewe ni mwalimu kabisa katika maneno ya hypertension, na ni vizuri sana kusikia ukiongea vile, kwa sababu ni wengi wanatakaniwa kujifunza mambo kama hayo.
Asante.
All right. Now, Dr. Kamotho, clearly this is very encouraging to see a patient that has taken this up and is living that life and encouraging others to take it up.
Absolutely.
When you talk about management of the same, especially when it comes to the diet, she has touched on the eating of the same and the exercises. What else is important?
Actually, let me commend Anne because, you know, actually, I think, first of all, you should give her much more airtime on this show and many other shows because she has actually nailed it. She has nailed it. She has taken charge of her health. That is what I really love about listening to her. She has taken charge of her health. She has gotten to understand what is all this condition, and most importantly, how do you manage it? How do you make sure that you do your exercise every day? How do you make sure you get checked? How do you know where you can get checked? And how do you time it? Because one has to be very proactive. One has to be very proactive. It's like running a business. You don't just run a business by sitting and waiting. You know, it's what's happening to our hospitals right now with COVID. You know, for a long time, our hospitals, our clinics, we were just sitting and waiting for patients. But then now you realize that you have to be more proactive. And in the business of your health, you have to invest time, you have to invest effort. You have to know, just like the lady said, and you know, what do you need to eat? How much of salt are you allowed to eat? Because you should need to reduce it to a maximum of 2 grams per day. Exercise, she's very correctly said, half an hour every day, and she's sweating it out. And she knows that when she walks from A to B, she'll clock that half hour. And the diet, so there's so many things. And by the way, if everyone were to take up their health that way, you would find that very few would end up with complications of high blood pressure because they would be able to control it. So as far as diet is concerned, she's actually said it very well. We need to adopt what in many environments we call a DASH diet, DASH, which is a dietary approach to stop hypertension, which places an emphasis on fruits, on vegetables, on seeded foods. Food with a lot of seeds are very good, or nuts, right? Going low on animal fat and having, if anything, more of vegetable fat, and less of fatty foods and meats, especially beef and the others that may have quite a high level of cholesterol. So those aspects of diet are very important. She also said something very key, that one should follow the advice of the doctor, because very many times we decide to treat ourselves. We get tired of always either taking the medication. Sometimes we get tired of medication. We get tired of going to the doctor's visits. And it's understandable because it's a long distance. Very often you find some people who need to find someone to take them. It's expensive, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And one should also find ways to make it more sustainable. So one should always look for advice of the doctor. So there are two things important here. One is taking charge, getting to understand it for yourself. But the other is also following the advice of the experts. And that advice can come on a regular basis. She's talked of checking the pressure. In her case, she's checking her pressure twice a month sometimes. And that is okay, especially once the blood pressure is under control. If we may just focus on the aspect of checking blood pressure. For those who have normal blood pressure, we normally advise that if you're up to from 30 to 40 years of age, you should have a checkup at least once a year. And if possible, at least twice. That is, if you have been checked and found to have normal blood pressure, then you should have another checkup 6 to 12 months after that. Once you clock 40, we advise 6 months and even more, every 6 months or more frequently, because from 40 years of age, it's very likely that you'll develop high blood pressure if your lifestyle particularly is not properly managed. So, and once you have, if you are found to be hypertensive, if your blood pressure is found to be high, then of course you will begin your lifestyle changes. You will adopt a healthier lifestyle than probably you have been doing. And from there, you will obviously be checking your pressure more regularly, depending on the level of control. So all that is, one should basically follow the advice of a doctor, and then look out for either a pharmacy close by or a health center or a clinic where they can check your blood pressure for you, because blood pressure has to be taken correctly. Some people use the upper arm, others use the cuffs that go on the wrist. The ones that go on the wrist are not as accurate, especially because of the different anatomical formations of different people, the sizes of the wrists, and also the position, because if the arm is a little higher or lower than it should be, then the reading can be off the mark. So usually the ones at the cuff are better because they maintain the level close to the heart as it should be. But if in doubt, one should just go to a place where they can do that for you. Okay. And it's very important to have a record. So as you take your pressure, you keep a record of it. So that when you go to see the doctor, then you can actually show him what your blood pressure has been like. And then, of course, there's the aspect of the medication, which we can talk about as well.
Okay, and we'll touch on that in a little while. Still talking about our nutrition and how this has been insisted on in as far as catering for those with COVID-19. Take a look.
Let us take advantage of the fruits and vegetables, particularly during this season, now that they are available. Other antioxidants that are important in boosting immunity include, for example, vitamin E. The major dietary sources of vitamin E include vegetable and fish oils, nuts, seeds, spinach, and broccoli. Another beneficial vitamin is vitamin D, which reduces the risks of several non-communicable diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes mellitus, and hypertension. Non-communicable diseases significantly increase the risk of death from respiratory tract infections such as COVID-19. And a good source of vitamin D is sunlight, which our country, being in the tropics, is blessed with all year round. So please spend some time outdoors each day to soak in sunlight and generate the vitamin D that your body requires.
And clearly, this is something that needs to be insisted on for all of us, because a good nutrition actually equates to a good immune system. Now, let me bring in George. George, when you were diagnosed, of course, you had to change your diet. How much did that change?
Ilibadilika kabisa, because most of the time I used to take carbohydrates, and then nika realize carbohydrates ina spike sugar zangu kwa juu. So after that niliambiwa to take more fruits and vegetables, and then to take little carbohydrates. So with the little protein. So hapo nika realize blood sugar size iko sawa. And then kuongelea about nutrition is that each and every time that I eat, labda tuseme ni supper, in the morning I have to check my blood sugar. In case kuna rise in blood sugar, inamaanisha the amount of carbohydrates that the intake, the amount of carbohydrates zenye nilichukua is not directly proportional to insulin, which inamaanisha carbohydrates zilikuwa juu kushinda insulin. Therefore, lazima tukue daktari wangu mimi mwenyewe, either ni adjust the insulin ama ni reduce the amount of carbohydrates zenye nimechukua.
Sasa George, kabla uendelee, ukisema carbohydrates ni zipi hizi?
Carbohydrates mostly ni starch, the ugalis, white bread, na akina cassava, hizo ndo carbohydrates, mostly ni energy giving foods.
Na ni zipi hizi ukuongezea sukari?
So when I take white substance, mostly like the ugali, mkate, chapatis, sugars zita spike.
Aha. Na ukisema proteins pia unaziangalia zipi hizi?
Protein, kuna two types of protein. Kuna the animal products, and then we have the beans and peas. So mostly more angalia to take animal product since hizo azirise sugar. Ukiangalia beans iko na white substance in it, so inamaanisha iko na a lot of energy in it, a lot of sugars in it. So whenever I consume beans, let's say beans and rice, ongeze vegetables, sugar zitakuwa high. Lakini ukichukua labda a quarter of ugali, so vegetables kwa wingi na a quarter of protein labda nyama, sugar zitakuwa sawa.
Aha. Sasa, you sound very, very aware of what you should be eating. Was it a struggle changing your diet when you started this journey? As a guy especially?
Ilikuwa na challenge mingi juu I was not the first person in our family. Remember tuko wanne, and then the only person kwa familia mwenye ako diabetic ni mimi. So ilikuwa challenging kwa mom na dad since hawakuwa na any idea about diabetes. So kuambia take this and you are not supposed to take this, labda familia inataka kula hii na hutaki kula hiyo, so inakuwa challenging. Ama labda unapata sometimes kuna hiyo generation growth, lazima utoke from childhood to peer, and then ukitoka kwa teens lazima tena uende kwa adult life. So unapata hapo kulikuwa na challenging, labda mna move, labda tuseme labda mmetoka as a group, labda mmeenda place fulani, so unapata hawa na take sodas and lots of chapatis, mandazis, but huwezi chukua, na unajua huwezi ambia everyone that you are diabetic. Hapo itakuwa na kuna wale wenye wata try kulower your self esteem. So there was a lot of challenges in adapting in a new life.
And we'll get to the stigma a little bit later on. Angela, with a 2-year-old, they are at a very critical age where they are growing and nutrition is very critical. But now you have a diabetic child. How are you actually managing this?
First of all, we were advised to change our diet, give her what is required, definitely the carbohydrates, the proteins, and the vegetables, and also the portions. Now, the problem was we were used to taking the white carbohydrates. So we were told to change to brown, brown ugali, brown rice, try the ngwashes, ndomas, and everything. And for some time, we decided we are not going to have a special diet for her, for Abby. We will all do one meal, and adapt to her, adapt to what she's taking. So the other kids, I have 3 children, so the other 2, and Abby included too, at some point they all refused, the brown ugali, they would look at it and they're like, no, we don't want this. No, they would just leave it there. The brown rice, it has a bad taste, So, and looking at how she's at 2 years old, she's growing, she needs the bodybuilding food, So what we did is we tried to adjust the portions of the white, and then in between we would also change and do brown, such that it wasn't brown all along, and she's not eating. So we had to adjust to that.
Okay. All right. Now, the reason why I'm asking about the nutrition is because there are some people who believe we cannot have a special diet for diabetes or diabetics. What they eat is actually essentially what we should all eat. Speak on the same, Dr.
You know what, I'm listening to the people living with NCDs or the caregiver. Ajera, her daughter now is a big girl, and she's Gachanja herself is a caterer, so she knows how to make fantastic food. And I think that, to me, there should be no special diet anymore. We've grown and we've learned. Whatever it is that we are giving, it's supposed to be healthy, not special. It should be healthy diet for each one of us. Ideally, it is just deciding what are the portions you need as a diabetic, whether you are type 1 or type 2, at the stage of your development. A child who is growing will actually require that carbohydrate for energy if you are going for exercise, you are going for swimming. But a sedentary person will still require the carbohydrates, but less. So the idea is to know how to balance. And if you sit with a nutritionist or your doctor, you'll be able to go through your activity and requirements. So there's not, I think it's best, you said earlier on that we should all be eating this healthy diet. We all need the carbohydrates, whether white or brown. you need the meat or the protein, animal protein or plant protein, and you need the vegetables and you need the fruits. How you balance those and how you space them out, the portions during the day, depends also on your activity, depends on your weight or your body mass index. So that's, and your type, the growth at your age. Teenagers will require more than maybe older people, and because of that's when they are active and all that. So it is important for that person who is the diabetic to understand, I'm liking this group because all these people are very well empowered and informed. Once you do that, the work of the doctor becomes very little, because then they'll know. You heard of George saying he knows even how to adjust his insulin according to what he has eaten, and I'm sure he knows how to adjust it according to the kind of physical activity. So let's try and focus on the healthy diet, not special diet. In my clinic, we no longer talk about special diets. We talk about healthy diet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Dr. Kamotho, there are many who have said, and I think this has been proven over and over again during those Ministry of Health briefings, in as far as who's susceptible to non-communicable diseases. We're talking about diabetes and hypertension in this case, which now is translating to the number of men being the most susceptible to COVID-19. What is it with men?
Good question. Well, yes, it is true that that many people with lifestyle diseases are succumbing to COVID. And it is true that there is a larger number of men so far, apparently, who are also getting infected and succumbing. What we do know is that, yes, the fact of being a man is actually a risk factor for developing cardiovascular disease. So those who, if you just look at the people who have high blood pressure, there's, men are at a higher risk of developing it than women. And we know that high blood pressure is actually the most common cause of death and the number one cause of death in the world and in Africa and Kenya as well. So we're not different from any of the others. We may be talking about COVID and a lot of the other issues, but if you actually look at the number of people with high blood pressure who are succumbing to COVID, it's actually about 17% of all the deaths in Kenya with COVID. 17% have had hypertension and about 15% or so with diabetes. So if you put both of those together, comes to about 1 in every 3 deaths of COVID are people with those two conditions. So it's not that those people should feel scared or should feel stigmatized. It's just that they should once again take charge. Just like I was very glad to listen to George just now once again, because he clearly has also decided to take up the knowledge and to understand how to manage himself. And this is exactly what we should all do. Sometimes we leave our health to other people, just like we leave our education to other people. We should take charge even of our children's education. Let's take charge of our health. Let's get to know what is the right food that we should be eating. If we go to a restaurant, like sometimes happens, and we're served food without vegetables, we should ask for a balanced diet. Where are the vegetables in this meal? And that's why you find that it's a question of each one getting to know what he or she needs. So back to the NCDs, back to the men. Sure enough, I know of someone who said something that really was very, very important and touching. He actually said that, look, it looks like COVID has been sent to kill us. He's a diabetic. It looks like COVID has been sent to kill us. And he was really genuinely concerned because there's so much stigma associated with diabetes itself and with COVID now that people are actually seeing the correlation between diabetes, hypertension, and COVID. But one should not really be scared. There's a lot of anxiety that is associated with COVID right now. In fact, there's so much anxiety, it's almost worse than the disease itself. So as long as one takes charge, as long as one knows what is right and what is wrong, then one should be confident in that knowledge, right? One should know that if you do the right thing, you will turn out fine. And there's no need to be anxious and to be over scared about the matter. So it was very good to listen to the Ministry of Health official who was talking about immunity, who was talking about building up the immunity through diet. He was talking of vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin C, which is found in fruits. He was talking about the importance of getting sunlight.
Yes.
All these aspects build your immunity. And the interesting thing about exercise is that it helps to modulate. It helps to modulate your immunity. There is a certain proportion of cells, T1, T2 cells, that have to be at a certain proportion. And when you exercise, and we're talking of 150 minutes every week on average of exercise. That's why the half hour every day already gets to that 150 and more. So if you have 150 minutes of exercise average per week, you already get to that point where you have very good immune modulation. And we see this also in people who have asthma. So if you ask anyone with asthma how they behave, how their asthma behaves when they exercise, you will actually realize that when they do a lot of exercise, their asthma goes down. They need less of the inhalers, which is a sign of exactly what we're talking about. Now, back to the NCDs. Diabetes, hypertension are related to asthma and the rest because they have to do with something called inflammation. When one has uncontrolled blood pressure or uncontrolled diabetes, the level of inflammation in the body is higher. And
Now,
that's when you're in trouble.
Daktari, allow me to stop you at that point because I need to take a quick short break. But when we come back, you will continue with that line of thought and also let us know what part of it the men are dropping the ball on, because there seems to be genuine concern on some areas that they need to pull their socks. When we come back, this conversation on the effects of non-communicable diseases on COVID and those living with it continues. And remember, the question of the day to you is, what is the greatest challenge of living with and managing diabetes and hypertension? Hashtag new normal on our social media handles. We'll be back.
Catch ESPN on channel 218 and 219 on DSTV. Ndovu flowers are fortified with vitamins and minerals to provide wholesome goodness for the whole family. Ndovu all-purpose flour makes the most delicious chapatis, mandazis and all other pastries. Ndovu is readily available at your nearest shop. Ndovu tosha.
Mwenyezi Mungu atakufungulia hazina zake nzuri kutoka mbinguni na kubariki kazi za mikono yako. Utayakopesha mataifa mengi, lakini wewe hautakopa. Mungu atakufanya kuwa wa kwanza na sio wa mwisho. Hakika utaendelea mbele na sio kurudi nyuma.
To get blessings za maisha, SYOSkiza tune. Dial *811 *928#.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. As we get to understand more about diabetes and hypertension this morning, let me bring in Anna Wiso. Anna, umeongea vizuri sana kuhusu vile ulienda ukabadilisha maisha, vile unaishi ndio angalau manage hypertension. I'm told she's not ready for me, but we'll cross over to her as she gets ready for me. Dr. Kamotho, when it comes to the men, there has been concern that they are dropping the ball when it comes to their lifestyle. What exactly is the issue? Okay, we shall get over to Dr. Well, I hear he is back with us. Dr. Kamotho, if you can hear me again, what is it about men when it comes to lifestyle that we need to pull our socks on? Please unmute your mic.
Thank you. So thanks again, Gladys. So sure enough, it is true that, men tend to be a little tough. And, we very often don't take care of ourselves as well as we should. Definitely not as well as our sisters, our mothers, who you could say are natural caregivers, right? So you find that many men will hardly listen to themselves. They hardly listen to their bodies, to what their bodies are telling them that they should or should not do. And so you find that men will decide, look, this headache I have is just fatigue. I was just out working too hard, or I was out with my boys having a drink. Maybe it's just a hangover, or this will go, and that kind of thing. And you find that as long as a man can actually walk and get on his feet, he thinks he's fine. And that's why you find very many people are just, men are literally just, carried or taken to the hospital because they just can't take themselves anymore. So it's very important to understand that. And even when dealing with male clients, one has to be very conscious of that fact and take it into account and get it like a project. It becomes a project for them because we like projects, right? And that becomes like their mission to take up their health in a different way than they may have done up till then. And so, and apart from the fact, just as I mentioned earlier, that that being a man is also a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, which basically means that men are 10 years disadvantaged, if you can use that word, compared to women as far as cardiovascular disease is concerned. So a gentleman of 45 years of age has a cardiovascular risk factor in general comparative to a lady of 55. So that's the fact, and that's one thing we need to be more aware of. And probably that's why men generally have a high mortality compared to women, apart from the fact that men are also involved in higher risk behaviors, even just driving. Sometimes men tend to drive at higher speeds than women, or to drive when drunk, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that is the fact. And then you find that men, because of their probably imbibing in alcohol a little too much, even though many women are taking this up, unfortunately, they end up with obesity, and that also predisposes to many other conditions, which makes their morbidity and their mortality higher, meaning that they're more likely to be sick and to die because of those complications.
Okay, and Anne is back with us. Anne, from your support groups, hizo support groups nyinyi huenda, kuna wanaume ukuja?
Wanaume huja, lakini ni wachache sana.
Na ukiuliza shida inakuanga nini haswa?
Unajua wanaume si rahisi mtu a open up shida yake.
Na sasa wakati mnaongea na wale ukuja kuhusu especially change of diet, mazoezi, wacha hii, fanya ile attitude ni gani?
Sasa attitude
ya wanaume
ya wao wa support group ya wanaume wanafanya, lakini sio kwa urahisi. Lakini nashukuru Mungu kwa wale ambao tulikuwa nao Wamezoea tunafanya tu.
Okay. Sawa. Let me bring in George. George, you said, okay, and we understood that you are in charge of your diet, but when you're having that small ugali and the next guy has a whole plate of an ugali, how does that conversation look like?
Ni your own boss. So wewe ndio daktari wako wewe mwenyewe. Unajua unaweza chukua hiyo ugali but at the end itakuwa na complication ama repercussion kwako. Yeye kwake akikula hiyo ugali cause pancreas yake na produce insulin, that is enough for him and that is good for him. Na wewe kwa hiyo ugali yako kidogo since unapata insulin yako ni artificial and your blood sugar is good, itakuwa the same na yeye. So ukianza kusikiza conversation, it depends. Mtu atakuelewa, ataelewa kwa nini unachukua ugali kidogo, lakini mwenye akuelewi atakupatia maneno, but the conversation in between itakuwa tu poa if that person understand your condition na wewe pia una understand yourself.
Family had to adapt to this healthy diet in the house. The husband, was that an easy thing to take up? Angela?
Yes.
Was it easy?
Sorry?
Everyone in the family had to take up this new diet and healthy diet in the family to support your 2-year-old. Was it easy for the husband to adapt?
Well, initially, I think when Abby was diagnosed, it was more of me taking care of her, you know, the injections, giving her the injections and all that. And at some point, she was resistant. You know, she started saying that, I mean, she would run away from me because I'm the one who was with the injection. I'm the one who was giving her jabs. And so she would run to the dad because he's the one who's comforting her, you know, holding her so that I can give the jab. So at some point it had to be, no, this can't work. So we are going to do it, both of us. You give an injection, I also give. And I also have the time to hold her and let her know that I'm not the one inflicting the pain on you. It was up to us to take charge, you know, to take charge of her life. She didn't know what was going on. So for her, she was wondering how come things have changed. Instead of the hugs, you know, I'm getting injections from mom. Yeah. So dad had to also take it up, and he did a very good job. He does a very good job. I'm proud of him. Even when it comes to things like exercising, you know, diet, he's also fully in charge, you know. Okay. In fact, sometimes I feel he does a better job than I do. So it's for all of us to take it up, and the people who are in the family, those who are surrounding us, it's our job to take up and take charge of this child. Yeah. Because they cannot do these things on their own. They can't make the decisions. Most of them are young. Now she's older. She's able to know. She can be able to do this. She cannot eat this. She cannot eat that. But before, it was a real struggle, you know. Telling her that you go for a birthday party or there's a birthday and you cannot eat cake, or you eat a small piece and everyone else is eating lollipops and everything, you know. So it's up to us as the caregivers, you know, and also we are their counselors. We are the ones who should help them know and understand this is the life, you know, this is what is happening, this is what we should do.
Okay, and Dr. Janga, the reason why I asked about the attitude of the men when it comes to management and treatment of diabetes and hypertension is because, as we said, there is a concern, but as a specialist, what would be your words of encouragement for our men even as we manage diabetes and hypertension?
Thank you, Gladys. And you've seen the way Dr. Kamodo, my colleague, tried very hard to try and see, you know, to find out where the men drop the ball. Yeah. I think we need to, even as we talk to the men who are diabetic and the men who are caregivers, we must always remember how we were all brought up. If you're in a family of men and women, It's the men who are seen as the stronger ones, you know, the way traditionally. They were given the harder chores and the women were given what was thought not to be very difficult. Men were not meant to cry. The women was okay to cry. It started then, the traditionally, culturally and socially. So even as you start handing out instructions, and of course you have all the knowledge, we are specialists, we know don'ts and do's and don'ts. I think look at that person and first sit and listen to them. I find that when you let the person, even that man, talk to you about the challenges he has now that he knows he's a diabetic or he knows his child is a diabetic, you actually find a common ground to be able to approach the management. And you find that people, it's not that the men are also not don't want to eat what they are told. Sometimes they don't have much say. They go home and they find food is cooked and it's on the table and they are given that to eat. Because for a long time, they've never been part and parcel of the menu in that house. So to all of a sudden, because they've been told they are diabetic or they're hypertensive, to be the one giving orders as to what, you are changing a lot of dynamics at home. So last year, the World Diabetes Day, the motto or the theme was diabetes and family. So what it's important now as people managing diabetes, as the teams, as educators, as counselors, get all the people as a family. Involve the family so that you start and talk to them now about this condition that seems to have come in the family and show them how easy it is to manage when you all approach it as a team. So that then the wife understands why the man is saying whatever he is saying, and the woman, the man also understands why, you know, like when we give them portions and we reduce the portion, it is sometimes the woman actually who complains. Why are you not eating my food? Why have you reduced? Is my food not good anymore? And of course, stress starts. And you've had George saying, and you've had Aunt Awiso saying, to reduce stress. So if you're going to be the very cause of stress by even the foods that you are telling them to eat, bring them together, and once they understand, I find that information is power.
Yeah.
The minute you give people the correct information, they take charge. These people, the members of this panel, they have all taken charge. And they started without knowing anything. Ajara has taken charge, so has George and Awiso. And we all can, for us then, the doctors and the health professionals, they should then take a back seat and actually just be almost like coordinators. The drivers become the people bearing the condition. Give them, empower them so that their voices, what they are telling you, first learn to listen. Doctors, for a long time, we are not very good at listening. We are good at handing out and writing prescriptions. We need to change that attitude and learn to listen to our patients, because most of them, after all, say 90% they will be their own doctors. They have to take charge. So even coming to diet, coming to lifestyle, find out what works best for them. When you tell somebody to do 150 minutes, most of them maybe do more than that because they are digging. That's what the part of work they do. Get to know what it is physically they do at home, because physical activity comes in many forms, not going into gyms and all. So I think managing this, our people, or managing the patients, is actually helping them manage themselves. Yeah.
And we mentioned, and both doctors actually mentioned, the fact that stigma is a huge impediment to early diagnosis and management of both diabetes and hypertension. And Awiso, when you are going through, wakati unapitia maisha yako ya kawaida, lazima ufanye hivi, ukule hivi na pale, kuna wale ambao kuangalia wanashangaa, mama shida yake ni nini?
Kuna wale wanashangaa kwa sababu saa zingine unaweza kuwa umekutana na wenzako na umeandaliwa chakula na unapata hiyo chakula maybe si ile utakula. Wakati unapokata ama unapoongea utakula, watashangaa, wanasema na huyu mama, wanafikiria ni maringo. Na si maringo, ni hali ya ugonjwa. Juu mimi mwenyewe najua afya yangu ni jukumu langu.
Ukweli. Na hapo sasa wakisha kuelewa, kuna wale wanabadilisha nia ama kuna wale wanasema
Kuna wale wanabadilisha kulingana na vile utawaeleza. Kwa sababu mimi nikiona akifanya hivyo, naweka kando na waeleza sababu yenye imefanya si kukula hiyo chakula, ama sababu yenye nafanya sikuli chakula ya aina hiyo.
Okay.
Ni kwa sababu ya manufaa ya mwili wangu.
Na sasa kuna wale wanaogopa watu wakiwaongea, kwa hivyo wanajificha ama hata wanakosa kwenda hospitalini. Watu kama hao unawahimiza vipi?
Mimi naambia ya kwamba kusema ya kweli, maisha ni kitu cha muhimu sana, na afya yako jukumu lako, ama afya yangu ni jukumu langu. Tafadhali tujitokeze, twende hospitalini, tupimwe, tujue hali yetu, kwa sababu pressure sio kitu ambacho utaangalia tu na unajua huyu mtu ako na pressure. Lazima upitie kwa kipimo, na mara nyingi tunasikia, unaweza sikia tu mtu alikuwa amekaa na amekufa, ni kwa sababu ya pressure. Na ni vizuri kama mtu angelienda kupimwa, ajue mapema, aingie kwa maagizo ya daktari, apate dawa, asingatia yale mengine yote ambayo tunastahili kusingatia, kama kufanya zoezi, kula lishe bora, kumanage stress. Kwanza nitarudi hapo mahali pa stress. Unaweza pata saa zingine mtu anakuambia amekosa usingizi usiku. Sisi tumeelezwa hivi, ukikosa hata usingizi, amuka, kaa hata kwa kitanda, breathe in several times, kama mara 3, mara 5, mara 6 hivi. Rudi lala, utapata usingizi unakuja. Ama ukijua ya kwamba fulani mahali huwa ananipikia simu ya kunishtua, before upokee hiyo simu, breathe in kama safari 6, 7 hivi, ili wakati ile ujumbe yenye ako nayo inakufikia, ipate akili yako ikiwa na oxygen. Mara nyingi unasikia mtu amefaint, na ukifuatilia unapata alikuwa na lack oxygen to the brain. Sasa wakati una breathe in out, inakufanya unallow brain yako kuwa na oxygen ya kutosha. Sasa jambo likitokea kama la kushtua, au utashtuka sana.
Aha, very well said. And George, for you, you mentioned that you have faced stigma. There are things that have been said that affected your self-esteem. How have you handled that?
Kitu ya kwanza, ukiface stigma, you must realize that in this life you are not there to make everyone happy. Kuna wale watakuwa happy na kuna wale hawatakuwa happy. So stigma imekuwa, zitakuwa. Mi kwanza high school nilikuwa na face a lot of stigma, because there was a time that my class teacher aliniita the sickling child. So ilinoffend, but at last there's nothing you can do. The only thing that you can do, at least unafaa uonyeshe watu that you are ambassador, you have that diabetes. But diabetes is not the end of the world. You can be ambassador, you can be the change you want in that society, because we have the information. So for us it's our duty for us to spread the information to the rest of the world so that they can understand. So mi ufanya saizi labda mtaa, mi at least mtu akiwa diabetic, cause bado mtaa information haijafika. May I tell you the truth, not that we have COVID and you dilly-dally with your hypers. May I tell you the truth that you are digging your own grave. Na ikifika place yenye labda watu wanaleta stigma, si lazima, it's not a must for me to involve within all activity. Naweza acha tu, you say what you want to say, but me, I know what I'm doing.
Very well said. Now, Dr. Kamotho, we are living at a time where many that are living with diabetes, hypertension, and other non-communicable diseases are very scared of going into hospitals because they were told stay away because you're the most susceptible to contracting COVID-19. What is the impact on this on treatment and management?
Absolutely. That's a very important point. Actually, if anything, if I can just connect it to what you were just saying before that, it just adds to the stigma. It adds to that scare that many people have that by the fact of being diabetic or hypertensive, that they have a higher chance of being infected, which as we heard earlier is actually not true. It's not that they have a higher chance of being infected. They have a higher probability of poor outcomes. right? So it's not about the infection, it's about the outcomes. And the outcomes are related to the level of control, the quality of control of the high blood pressure, of the diabetes. So if those conditions are well managed, then the outcomes will be just as good as anyone else. I have a colleague of mine who was telling me of a patient of his who is 90 years old. She has hypertension, she has diabetes, she has HIV, and she's COVID positive and doing very well. She's actually at home. Why? Because this lady is well controlled on all those aspects. So the fact that one has those conditions doesn't mean that one, again, I go back to that aspect of anxiety, of stress, doesn't mean that one should be so anxious that one has those conditions until that anxiety raises those hormones in the body that make the outcome worse. Because when one is very anxious, you have a high production of cortisol, which reduces your immunity precisely. So it's very, very important to manage your stress, just like we're hearing. So even as a patient who has diabetes and hypertension, we heard what was said, that those patients should not go to the clinics, to public hospitals. Actually, it was unfortunate initially because even we doctors closed our clinics, we must admit. Right at the start, a good number of our colleagues decided, look, we don't want to be at risk. And some clinics were closed, many private clinics were closed. And as you correctly said, even the government facilities were closed for about 2 or 3 weeks. And the whole idea was to prevent people coming and getting more exposed to COVID, which was really the opposite of what should be happening. When people are sick, that's when the hospitals should be even widely open so that people can seek the care they need. And so what happened is that even after the Ministry of Health opened the clinics, the government clinics once again, and asked people to come, people refused to go. Because they said, no, we don't want to go and meet up with COVID in the clinics. We don't want to travel with COVID in the matatus. We'll stay at home and we'll sort this at home. So unfortunately, many people were not able to sort it at home. I remember getting a call from a good friend of mine who's diabetic. I mentioned him earlier. So he called me and told me, look, Daktari, you need to do something. This was one evening I was driving home. He called me and told me, I've just received a call that 15 of my colleagues, he said, 15 of my colleagues have died in the last 3 weeks, right? This was around early May. So those 15 were all diabetics. They had not gone to the clinics. They had not had their doctor's consultations. They missed out on their medicines and they died. And it was really sad because about 2 weeks after that, he called me and told me his office assistant, and Dr. Jenga may know who I'm talking about, because she knows him very well, actually. They've worked a lot together with his friends. She called me and told me that, look, his office assistant, who was a type 1 diabetic, had also died. Wow. So this is for real. This is happening. And it's all because of that fear that many people have of contracting COVID without realizing that as long as those conditions are well managed, as long as one has access to the medicines, as long as you're checking your blood pressure, your blood sugar, and they're under control, your risk is way down, just like for anyone else. In fact, I would go to the point of saying, and this is important, Gladys, because on one of your shows, I would like you to think about getting the health insurance represented, because the biggest stigma is with the insurance companies. So you'll find many of our diabetics, many of our hypertensives, by the fact of being hypertensive or diabetic, you are not covered by the insurance, or you're covered up to a certain maximum, up to a certain limit. And this places a burden on our patients because they cannot afford some of the medications. They cannot afford all the follow-up that they need. And this does not help the situation. And yet, when you listen to some, like, for instance, the other panelists, George and Anne and the rest who are on our panel today, you'll realize that they know a lot about their health. Yeah. And they're really living very well. In fact, they're living better than many others who are not hypertensive or diabetic. They know what to eat, they know what to do. And if you actually watch their lives, they live healthier lives than those who are not diagnosed with any of those two conditions.
hear
And so
you.
one asks oneself, what is the logic of limiting their access to health insurance? And so that's a very, very important point, because the stigma sometimes goes up to that level. So I'd just like to encourage all of them that, just by the fact also that there's no one who is 100% healthy. Everyone everywhere is carrying some illness of some form. It's just that it's not either not diagnosed or not known or not talked about.
Yes.
So everyone has their little cross they're bearing. And as long as it's a condition that is well known, they say a problem known is a problem half solved.
Very well said. And at this point, we'll take another short break on your wall. But before we do, remember our question of the day to you. What is the greatest challenge of living or managing diabetes and hypertension? You're speaking to us on that hashtag new normal. If you can have some of that feedback. Shiro says, good to note ordinary people are so well informed on how to manage diabetes and hypertension, especially food, keeping fit, and heed advice from doctors. Very well said, Shiro. Very encouraging indeed. Gachanja says social economic status with all these conditions and needs, from lifetime meds, lifestyle changes and diet, it's really a burden, and I think that is what Dr. Kamotho was alluding to. Kevin Kedode says management of all these requires money for either insulin, which costs up to 1,000 shillings for 2 to 3 weeks on a patient. These diseases don't choose the rich. Many poor people are undergoing hard times managing them. It's only that they are not given attention. We hear you, David. We have Chem Ruth who says, my mother amekuwa na hypertension for a long time. Inaweza rudi normal tena? That is a good question that Dr. Kamotho can actually address. And Dr. Kamotho, when we come back, I'd like you to address that question, if you can actually reverse hypertension. Stay with us.
Breaking news from Molfix. Let's see what they're developing right now.
Pants is just for me. It really feels very comfy.
Molfix pants with anatomic fit technology. New Molfix pants, an invention from babies for babies.
You should also try Molfix.
Get free access to digital learning today. For primary and secondary students, one can now access learning and revision materials that has been approved by KICD. Dial *291# and subscribe to Safaricom Digital Learning and Shupavu 291 today. Tufungue njia, elimu iendelee.
I have a well-paying job, my friend. I have a job.
Hii hapa ni Mercury na inauzwa 50,000.
My son is going to Harvard. I need him to take his SATs.
We can use this to get him ready as we reschedule for him.
Look here, madam. My son was born ready.
This is yours. Let's just try. Please write your name. Good. Ili Mercury inatumia kutengeneza mpaka nini? Rocket.
What you have there is glycerin. Plus mercury is not used for that purpose, my friend.
The internet helps you keep tabs with events from all across the world.
Mr. Camo, not connected.
people are gradually warming up to accept our business model, because rather than go to a barbering shop where you can't be assured of your safety, they would rather want us to come.
We are able and capable of producing about 50 ventilators per week.
It has also made us realize that as a country we are capable to manufacture actually most of the things we think we should import.
Did you know there's a laundry bar soap that can help save you time, water, and money? You save by not having to use multiple products. And you only rinse once. For a laundry soap that can help save you time, water, and money, try Whitewash Extra. Brand power, helping you buy better.
It is your world. Thank you for staying with us. Now, Brian Moshiri sat with young people during a focus group and had a very honest conversation on what they understand about diabetes and hypertension and the grave effects those two could have during this pandemic. Take a look.
Let's have a young person's debate, a conversation today. With me, I'm joined by some young, energetic guys to give you a young Kenyan perspective on diabetes. So guys, I think at this point in time, let me just come on board and introduce to you the team that I have with me, and some very young people here that are willing to have a conversation with me and basically just get to tell me that really, does the government know what diabetes is, to what it means to young people, and what young people actually think? Do we even know what diabetes is? So I think I'm just going to start with the only gent in the panel, if I'm to call you so. And that's Morgan. Morgan, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Nice to see you, nice to see you. So this conversation about diabetes, what do you think? Ideally, what do you think yourself as Morgan when it comes to diabetes? Do you know?
Well, for me, I would say, because I have some slight medical background, I do have some knowledge concerning diabetes.
I don't have that much knowledge,
okay,
but of research because of this conversation, and I was actually shocked to to see things that we ought to be knowing, but we don't know. It's not public knowledge.
Yeah. Let me also now bring on board Roseanne. Roseanne, how are you? And let's talk about diabetes. What do you know about diabetes?
Personally, I don't know much about diabetes.
Okay.
The only little part I remember, it was in high school, talking about some diseases.
Yeah.
So
Helen.
Well, I know a little bit about it, but I am not very much informed.
I'm now joined by one of JQuat's premier student, and this is Velma Songole. Hi, Velma. How are you doing? Do you, perhaps, even from where you sit, know anything about this?
Yes, I have a small clue about diabetes being a killer disease in Kenya and in the world generally. So my 2% of thoughts about this issue is that diabetes, there are two types of diabetes. One is mellitus, the other one I have forgotten about it.
Okay.
But I want to say that diabetes is caused by things like taking, those are the things that I know about diabetes.
Immaculate, karibu sana to the conversation. What do you think about diabetes? I mean, you're a young person. What do you know? Do you have a clue about it?
Well, according to me, I have very shallow knowledge about the disease.
Okay.
At least I know that it's a chronic disease that cannot be cured, but that it can be controlled.
Okay.
I understand that it affects the blood sugar levels in your body.
Okay.
So for you to control it, you have to inject insulin in your body to regulate the blood sugar level.
Let me have Gashambi. I'm gonna bring you on board again, and the talk here is, how many types of diabetes do we have? I didn't know there were types of diabetes until the time I was being given the brief to this show. How many types of diabetes do we have?
So I'm a bit confused. Initially, I knew we had two, type 1 and type 2.
Okay.
But now I came across gestational diabetes. So I'm a bit confused.
And that's why I had Morgan on board, because this is the kind of person that would let me know. Morgan, perhaps, what is the position here?
So you have two types. You have type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is insulin dependent. That is when your blood sugars are high. Type 2 is insulin independent. I mean, does not depend on insulin. That is when your blood sugars are low. Now that is when you say you're hypoglycemic, and when your blood sugars are high, that's when you say you're hypoglycemic. Yeah.
Then let me just now come again to the gestational kind of diabetes, because I saw Gachanja mention that. And Immaculate, perhaps you have a clue on what this is? Gestational?
Oh, no, I have no clue.
Thank you. I am Immaculate, and I'm sure other guys like Helen had no clue what this is. So let me just take you through it. So gestational is a form of high blood sugar affecting pregnant women. Those who develop gestational diabetes are at higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes later in life. In most cases, there are no symptoms. A blood sugar test during pregnancy is used for diagnosis. Now, guys, I think for this one, I'll just need the entire of you to be on screen so that you can all raise your hands for my next question. Remember, guys, we're just trying to show you basically that how much the government has neglected the youth in terms of diabetes, because we are young, we have absolutely no clue what diabetes is. Now, guys, I'll just require you to raise your hand if you know. And if you don't, you can just remain, you can just put your hand down. What is hypertension? Guys, okay, I can see Helen and Morgan have their hands raised. So basically, in a panel of 5, 2 guys know what hypertension is. I mean, I think this is basically what we call high blood pressure, Morgan?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we call the usual in layman language, high blood pressure.
Basically, most of the Kenyans understand it as high blood pressure.
Okay, and I still require all of you to be pinned like that so that I may ask also this next question. Guys, does any of you know anyone with hypertension or diabetes? So 4 out of 5 guys know what hypertension, know someone who has hypertension or diabetes. And of all the 5 of you, only 2 knew what hypertension is. Again, a representation of what the youth is. So guys, let me just bring you now on board that, did you know that diabetes and hypertension can be reduced by your lifestyle? Did any of you know that it can be lifestyle induced? And I'm about to just close this conversation right here, right now. Morgan, you are the medical practitioner in this team. Perhaps your last final rebuttal to any young person watching you, watching us right here, right now. Do they need to have something to take care of their health? I mean, they are young, they are energetic, they can go around their businesses. Any red alerts, perhaps?
Well, just maybe you just allow me to say something in 1 minute. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, according to the IDF, the International Diabetes Federation statistics as for last year, it says that 2 out of 3 people who have diabetes, they live in urban areas. And basically that explains the lifestyle that the urban people do have, inclusive of us, the youths. Look at the kind of foods that we take. We take junk foods, we take chips, and you see, these are leading factors to obesity, right?
But
we
Morgan,
smoke, these are the leading factors. Yes.
Morgan, I love my fries. I mean, you can't now start to tell me that I can't live on my fries.
Well, but you better choose between your appetite and your future. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to leave that because you value your future.
I value my future.
Not want to come and bury you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Some very insight and incisive thoughts there by Morgan, who is part of our conversation here. And thank you very much. I mean, if you're out there, that's how the platform looks like. That's the youth. We are 75% of the population, and we have absolutely no clue on what this is. Let me take my final word. So there you have it. You have the youth who have no clue on what diabetes is. And when I say the youth, I put myself inside there because I consider myself young. And don't get me wrong, I'm not getting sarcastic here. This is a fact of life. My situation was so dire that over the past couple of weeks, my colleagues, Gladys Gachanja and my super producer, Kevin Gitao, had to sit me down and school me on this menace of diabetes. I was recently having a conversation with my father, and he let me know that his father, my grandfather, actually died of diabetes. So I may have perhaps been a very arrogant young man. I didn't know, I didn't even want to realize what had killed Guka. But then again, I realized that this condition is actually hereditary. So over the past couple of months, the government through the Ministry of Health has spoken to us daily, be it Monday, Wednesday, or even Sunday. And the term underlying condition has gained immense popularity. Now, just in case you've been living under a rock for the past 5 months, an underlying health condition is a chronic or long-term illness that in which may weaken your immune system or turn your immune system low. So here in Kenya, diabetes has been reportedly named as an underlying condition that is the leading cause of COVID-19 related deaths. So today, I ask the government to invest in 75% of its population that is young, to change tact and speak to the youth, and finally to the youth, to take charge of your health, because a healthy man is a wealthy man. Have a good time. Be good. God bless. See you when you see me. I'm Brian Mushiri.
Very well said and done, Brian Mushiri there, bringing a good insight as to how the young people view diabetes and hypertension, if at all they know about the same. Dr. Kamotho, very briefly, let's start off with the fact that we need to totally bust the myth that the younger ones are not susceptible to diabetes and hypertension.
Absolutely, and I think that was very insightful, that piece there by Brian. And it's very good to see the youth and listen to them, because actually they form a very large proportion of our population. And we say that the youth are our treasure. They are what will help us grow as a country as well. So sure enough, they're not exempt. They're not exempt from the lifestyle diseases. We are finding more and more young people who are developing high blood pressure, many who are developing diabetes, and it's mainly caused by lifestyle. We find a lot of youth who are not active physically as they should, and so many of them are developing obesity, and even without the obesity, just by not being active, many are actually developing high blood pressure and diabetes. So it's very, very important to ensure that one is physically active, that one doesn't just, especially these days, because that's where we are right now, we're not just sitting indoors, that we take action, that we actually find ways to exercise. Yesterday we had a great day with the kids here at home. We went out to Karura Forest and we took our bikes and we had a fantastic 2 hours out there among the trees, and we found a good number of other young people also going for walks and riding their bikes. And so the fact that we're at home doesn't mean that we cannot go out, take the sun, enjoy ourselves, and physically exert ourselves. And it doesn't have to be in exotic places. It can just be around the estate or just in a park, a green area close by. So we, again, need to take charge. And even when it comes to food, Brian loves his chips and so do many of us. But let's remember, do we have a high appetite for just that, or are we looking for a future which is also just as good, and a future where we can do a lot and earn a lot and help many people? So basically, I would just like to urge the youth to, once again, I think the theme of this morning has come out as just taking charge.
Yeah.
So I would like the youth to take charge of their health and take charge of their education. Right now, I would say there is no excuse for not being informed, especially the youth, because we have the internet and everything is there on the internet.
Very
And they say,
true.
just like you say, you are what you eat,
Mm.
you are also what you read, and you are what you watch. So if you're just watching clips here, clips there, a little funny clip here, a little funny clip there, you'll just end up that way. But if you take time to read the right material, to do a little research on the internet, right now there's no excuse for not knowing. We cannot and should not blame the government. The government is not the one and all. The government is busy with other things that it should be busy about. But as far as informing ourselves, we are the ones to take charge of that as well. We can ask them for guidance and look for the right people, look for the right doctors to talk to, look for the right teachers. But we need to take charge of our health.
We
right?
hear you, Dr.
and our
Kamotho. Dr. Kamotho, let me cross over to Dr. Jenga. We're talking about being informed, meaning we also have, as stakeholders, a challenge in as far as how we message. You know, the information going out there around diabetes and hypertension. How can that be managed better?
Thank you, Gladys. I think much as we have the internet and we have everything else, the radio, and it's what is coming out of that internet, what is coming out through the videos and the TV that is important. So the correct, telling people the facts and giving them, making it short and simple for everybody, even up to the rural area to understand is what is very important. I know for a fact now that the Ministry of Health is committed to changing their communication strategy, especially the messages that are going out on COVID, because that's what caused the stigma to start with, the way we started. So to change that, we have to actually get those messages, let them be factual, and also let them be encouraging. Because when you talk about the messaging that's going out on diabetes and hypertension, at least I know the Non-Communicable Disease Alliance of Kenya, where Kenya Cardiac Society, which Dr. Kamotho is very active, we've come up with a platform called Fafanuka. Fafanuka means be informed, and we partnered with Safaricom. In this, we have bulk messages now going every day out there on diabetes, on hypertension, on cancer, on epilepsy, and we're going to hopefully involve almost all the other non-communicable diseases. Because when people hear non-communicable disease, they quickly think it's just diabetes and hypertension. But there are very many that really people need to know. When I listen to Brian and see how our youth actually are in the dark and are saying, I do not know, they need to become more ambitious and proactive. We have a youth for NCDs in this country, university students, very young people, one named, led by a young man called Stephen. Stephen has made it his business to get the young people together, and every day he posts, out of the whole year, every day from when we started in January and even last year, he posts something on a non-communicable disease, information in a very simple way, the symptoms. So this is how now this is what we need to embrace. And media, you are very powerful. The message that goes out there must be also simple and factual, not threatening, and also encouraging people. Saying, and I'm so happy, Dr. Rashid, when you brought the clip out there, people who are diabetic or have other NCDs are not the ones that are prone to COVID. You and me are prone to COVID.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how healthy you are. We are seeing range of the people with COVID ranging between 1 year and 99 years. I mean, not all those people have underlying NCDs. There are some who have underlying NCDs. The danger is when you have an underlying condition, it doesn't matter whether it's diabetes or hypertension. Could it be cancer? Could it even be an underlying infectious disease like TB? Your immunity is already compromised. This virus is coming to hit the menace. So this is now the messages so that people know, even if you have the non-communicable disease, do the needful, control it well. You might actually have better immunity than somebody who has no NCD, and they will get the COVID. Because we are having people who have no underlying disease and still dying because their immunity is low, because also of their lifestyle, because their immunity is not good.
Okay.
So I think that message must come out so that we make people not, I mean, causing fear and scare, I think, is the worst thing you can do to manage a pandemic or any other condition.
Now, Dr. Kamotho, even as we bring this conversation to a close, very, very briefly, touch on a question that was posed to you earlier. Can you reverse hypertension?
Absolutely. So the answer is yes, you can reverse hypertension if you establish what the cause is. If the hypertension was caused by some other condition within the body, such as I mentioned, thyroid disease or some condition like that, then you can actually control that thyroid disease and hence bring down your blood pressure down to normal. Also, if it is just primary hypertension and it is elevated, you can also get into, a good exercise regime and a good diet. And I have cases of patients who have taken up their diet seriously and more so their exercise. And I keep saying the magic pill really is exercise. If we take that up seriously, we can actually avert many of these conditions. So I have cases of both men and women who have taken up exercise seriously and have managed to get off their medication. But I'll put a very important caveat that is a decision. The stopping of the medication is a decision by the doctor, not by the patient. So it is the doctor who should actually monitor you, assess what your blood pressure is, what medications you need, and then decide whether he can reduce it or stop it. The majority of people will end up on some form of medication. They may reduce the number of tablets that they need, but they'll still need maybe one tablet or half a tablet just to control it, which shows the importance of starting early to live a healthy lifestyle. That's why it's always good to talk to the youth, because they're at that point where they can make decisions which will affect the rest of their lives. If they live well, if they avoid excess alcohol, because that's something that weakens the whole immune system, if they avoid excess sugars and they take up regular exercise, good diet, they'll keep their arteries healthy for longer, and it will be easier for them to stay without developing these complications. We're also finding a lot of our sisters, our young girls, with developing hypertension early because, unfortunately, of the early use of contraceptives. Hormonal contraceptives have been shown to increase the rate of high blood pressure and also the rate of clots, and that's why many of them end up with clots to the lungs, clots to the brain, and this is something which they should also know, they should be informed about. But one of the things we also emphasize is the constant communication with your doctor. And that's why the internet is very good. We have actually developed a platform called Daktari Africa, which enables people, the youth, the adults, anyone to contact their doctor easily and to have a conversation with that doctor online. So even those patients who find it difficult to go to the doctor because they're afraid of meeting with COVID, or the youth who are busy, or the other adults who are busy with their time, they can make use of online telemedicine platforms such as daktariafrica.com, and they can have a conversation with their doctor online. That way they have no excuse for not seeing their doctor. They can always be in touch with him, get advice, take charge of their lives, be educated, ask for advice, look for the right websites, the right information, arm yourself with information, and take charge of your life and live healthily, be active in exercise, and live life with moderation, and you'll enjoy life much more.
Thank you, Dr. Kamotho and Dr. Jenga. Can we reverse diabetes very briefly?
But a very simple answer, yes, you can. And that is only type 2.
Okay.
Type 2 diabetes. Type 1, the pancreas is already gone. So that one is no way, unless you get a pancreatic transplant. Type 2, it's everything Dr. Kamotho has said, and more in diet. We already have a program in Kenya now. I have one of my colleagues, Dr. Daniel Katabo. We've started that program of reverse diabetes because it has succeeded in other parts of the world, and I think it's something that is doable.
Yes.
And if you get to diagnose type 2 diabetes early, get that person, you will be able to save the beta cells, because all the beta cells are not gone. You'll be able to save the beta cells that produce insulin and help them actually become better in producing more insulin. And that person will be able to reduce their pill load. A number of them have actually come off medication. So
Okay.
the answer in simple is yes. That is a topic for another 1 hour.
Yes, definitely.
In the future, yeah.
And we shall make plans to do or have that conversation right here. And I must say thank you to everybody who joined us on this conversation, even as we understood better diabetes and hypertension, and of course what that means in as far as the numbers we're seeing connected to COVID-19, and a lot has been elaborated. And thank you for George, Anne, and Angela for being so candid and open about your own personal journeys on the same. Now, tomorrow morning, I'll still be with you on Your World as we look at the world without waste. Yes, we are living at a time where we got rid of plastic papers, but we still have some plastics around with us, some that have been said to be important. So what can we get out of what we have? Is there a way we can actually even make this something that can build our social economics? Well, that conversation will be part and parcel of Your World tomorrow. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and Akasaka, a Japanese musician and formerly trained Buddhist monk, has become a viral phenomenon with tracks marrying religious chanting with beatboxing. We'll leave you with that.
In Japan, it's very common that the son of a priest succeed their father and succeed their temple. So my father sometimes asked me if I wanted to become a monk and succeed him, and I would say no, because I was not interested in it. So it was all canceled. You know, I had no job, I had no income. So to me, it was really like a pinch, but at the same time, I thought it was a really good opportunity to think about myself, or to think about the future of Buddhism.